Well, hello and welcome to the Tennessee Golden Hour. I'm Beth Moore.
And my name is Matt Tullis, and I am also from the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board as of this recording.
Yes.
I'm really excited today because he gets to talk to one of my buddies, and he knows a lot about computers.
Yeah.
Do you remember your first computer?
I actually do. Before I went overseas to serve as a journeyman, I got a laptop, a Toshiba, that was, 5 inches thick or whatever they were back then, and weighed.
Before your journeyman time.
Before my journeyman. So through college, I just used library computer and still hand wrote papers and I had a floppy disk.
Yes.
So
I was in the floppy disks. Actually, they did flop.
Oh, mine were the square.
They were hard.
They were hard, but they were
ones,
still called.
Yeah, right before the Civil War, they actually you could bend them, and that's why they called it the floppy disk. And I had this old Apple that had 2 slots in it. It didn't even have a hard drive.
Okay.
And I mean, it had just like a millionth of the room that my iPhone has on
Exactly.
it. And I don't know, and it was the greatest thing in the world.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's just amazing how much our computers are just controlling everything.
Everything we do. Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
Yes.
I fancy myself a writer, and things are moving into an era where I might be extinct from doing that because computers seem to know how to write poems.
All the things.
All that stuff.
Yeah.
And so really excited to have Doug Finch. Welcome to the Tennessee Golden Hour here. And one of the things that I love about Doug, and by the way, he's our IT director here at the Tennessee Baptist Mission Board, and he is exactly 10 yards away from my office, so I can go to him at any moment, and he's so sick of me doing that. But
I hear when you get no email.
That's right. Exactly. And you know what kind of music I like.
I do.
So anyway, glad you're here because you're going to answer all the great mysteries of life when it comes to computer stuff.
No pressure.
But before that, you and I talked, I guess it was a couple of years ago, about how you became a believer, because I just assumed when you first got here that you were probably in RAs, or not GAs, but you were in our program and you'd been dyed-in-the-wool Baptist all your life. That's not true.
That's not true. That's not true.
So how did you come to know the Lord?
Well, it was after I came back from serving my time in the military, and I was at a pretty low point in life then, and it was right about the time that Desert Storm kicked off.
Right.
One of my former supervisors in the Air Force called me up one day and he said, "Hey," he says, "I got orders to go overseas." He says, "Would you mind calling and checking on my wife every so often just to make sure everything's okay?" She lived down in Florida. Of course, I'm up here in Tennessee. I said, "Sure thing." And so the first night that I called her just to check on her, I just was letting my words fly, and I had a pretty rough vocabulary back then. I was lost as a ball in high weeds, as they say. And she just confronted me and she said, "I really wish you wouldn't take the Lord's name in vain." And it just shocked me because, I mean, I was the kind of person that I would have just tore into somebody if they had said something to me like that. But, the Lord had been dealing with me. And so when she said that, it just was at the perfect moment. The Holy Spirit had just prepped my heart for it. And so I said, "What do you mean?" And it just gave her the platform where the Lord just laid open a perfect paved road for her to share the gospel with me. And it was something that I had never heard. I didn't know you needed to be saved. I didn't know that you had to accept Christ as your Savior. And so it was a watershed moment.
You had no
for me.
idea about all
I
that
had no
stuff.
idea. I'd never heard of it.
What was your background?
I grew up Catholic, and
just kind of a marginal Catholic, or
I think as marginal Catholics go, I probably was below that. I was a substandard Catholic. I just didn't really care about any of that stuff. But I mean, I went through all the classes, but I just don't ever recall that being something that was said, that you needed to be saved. And so after she challenged me with that, I then went on this quest of trying to find out, what is she talking about? What is all this stuff? And so I mean, we don't have enough time for me to go into the whole thing, but that led me to where I started reading scripture. That led me to a church where I heard for the first time somebody preach that if you don't accept Christ as your Savior, you will go to hell. And so that was just a revelation for me.
Wow.
And so it changed my life. So.
Well, it changed my life too. I got to meet Doug Finch, the wizard of all things widgets. So,
well, I've never heard your story, Doug, and but I know about your family because it transformed how you raise your kids. You got a son in ministry.
Oh, yes.
So just how that's multiplied in your life is really cool to think about.
Absolutely.
But to completely change gears, and now we're going to switch to cybersecurity. What advice would you offer to the average Tennessee Baptist pastor or even church member that might be listening to the podcast today of steps that they can take today to be cyber safe, if that's the correct term?
Sure. Well, there are several things that you really need to keep at the forefront.
Okay.
And they're all common sense. None of this stuff requires a degree in, rocket science or anything like that. So the first one is really awareness. You need to be aware that you are a target for hackers. Most people think, why would a hacker care anything about me? But they really do, because they're looking for easy prey. And so you look at small businesses, small churches that don't have those IT resources. They're definitely a heavy target for hackers. They're just, it's like, it's like taking candy from a baby, so to speak, in many ways. So know that you are a target. Don't walk around with your head in the sand. The second thing, and I've written a little document about this, and we're actually going to release this in a new website that's upcoming for churches as a resource.
Awesome.
So you're getting the
good. We're getting the first look.
The maiden voyage here. But the second thing is also just as complicated. Update your stuff. Update your computer. Keep things updated. You know, we're pretty uptight about making sure things are updated around here, but it's not just your computer that needs to be updated. It's your phones, your tablets. All of your devices need to be kept up to date.
Why is that important?
It's important because those updates fix security holes. They fix vulnerabilities that are in those devices, and that's how hackers like to get in. They try to exploit those vulnerabilities, and so you gotta shut you're basically shutting the door on them so that they can't get in.
So when I get that notification on my phone, I shouldn't wait however long, a week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
It's funny. In the old days, I've been doing this for about 30 years. So in the old days, we used to run updates once or twice a year.
Oh, wow.
And then things, security started becoming more of a upfront thing. And so we did it, quarterly. And then it was monthly. And then it was, well, we need to just do this weekly. And now we are looking for updates all the time.
Wow.
Microsoft releases updates on a scheduled time frame on their Patch Tuesday. But there are updates for browsers. There are updates for other applications. There's updates even for the little plugins that go into browsers. I mean, everything out there has, patches that they release. And they release them in what may seem like a unpredictable time frame, but they release them in many cases based on what they call zero-day vulnerabilities, which is when something is found that is significant and it makes you vulnerable. They want to go ahead and push those out there. And Microsoft does that frequently. So they'll have their Patch Tuesday, but then they'll have an emergency patch update, which will come out, whenever it comes out. So
I'm a small church pastor, and I'm closing up the shop for the night, church office, and I want to make sure all my computers are turned off, right?
No, you want to leave them on.
Okay.
Leave them on. I know, it's funny because years ago, again, we would turn them off.
Shut down everything.
You want to save that electricity. You want to save that hard drive. Well, hard drives today don't spin around like they used to. They're solid state. And it's best to leave them on so that they can get their updates, because it's not just the operating system that gets updated. It's also the security software that gets updated, which leads me to point number 3 on this list here. Security software. You have got to run... we used to call it antivirus. It's not really antivirus anymore. It is way, way, way more than antivirus ever thought about being. Antivirus looked at signatures. This code will do this over here. But today, we're looking at, there's 2 different types of security software. There's what they call endpoint detection and response software. That's EDR. And then the other one is extended detection and response, XDR. So EDR looks at the individual computer itself. So EDR would be just your computer. with that one computer, it looks at all the things that are running on there. It looks for anomalies in the software. It looks for unexplainable behavior within the software, things like that. XDR takes that concept and it spreads it out across many devices. So it would be, if you were to put it in layman's terms, it would be like, I have a security guard for my house versus I have a SWAT team for my neighborhood. And so XDR is what we use here. It is a little bit more expensive, but it is by far worth it to keep your devices protected. And it really, people used to say, well, I use a Mac. I know both of you use Mac, and Macs are not susceptible. No, that is not true.
Right.
iPads are also susceptible. Android devices are susceptible. So
if they want this service, do they just Google XDR, or how would they?
Yeah, endpoint detection, or they can either do EDR software or XDR software. A lot of your big ones use it. Trend Micro uses it, or they have a version of it. Symantec, the Norton people, they have it. Sophos is out. I mean, there's a ton of them. We use CrowdStrike here. They're big.
Will that be in the document that you're going to some information about that on the website?
We're going to put resources together with links for all this stuff.
That's going to be great.
Yeah, just to make it easier for folks. The fourth point is to be suspicious. And I hate that. I hate that because, you really hate to say you need to not trust people, but in this world that we live in, you really can't. So if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
It probably is. And so, if you see an email that looks like it came from somebody you can't just assume that it's somebody that you know. You have to double check it, as we did right before we started this call.
Right, yeah.
And I remember, I guess it was a couple of years ago, I got a text from Jeannie Davis saying, I'm planning a surprise for Brother Andy.
Yeah.
And could you go and get some things
gift cards? Yeah.
So, they even come at you just through texts these days.
Well, here's the thing. They do it through email. They do it through text. They'll do it through phone calls now.
Yeah.
They'll do it through any medium that they can. And if you're getting those types of text messages or those types of emails, the suspicious part is you need to understand that this isn't just a random occurrence normally. They have done the research.
They're getting creative.
They don't want to waste time. This is a business for them. It's a multi-billion-dollar business globally. They don't care about country lines. They don't care about religious lines. They don't care about anything. All they do is they care about money, and it is a business to them. And in some cases, it's even a forced business to them, like if it's state-sponsored terrorism or cyber crime. So yeah, you've got to be careful because they're probably more in the know about who you are and what your organization does than you realize.
Yeah.
And they try to create a sense of like urgency.
Oh, there's always a sense of urgency.
So because I know we've gotten some of these emails and you think, oh, I have to take care of this right now, or this seems important. And it causes you to not stop and think, wait, something's off about this.
It's human behavior.
Yeah.
Human behavior says there's something critical going on. I need to deal with this right now. And they're capitalizing on that. And so you don't want to play into that.
And you always say, don't click the links.
Yeah.
Why do I not want to click the link?
Well, you should be careful because those links will take you somewhere that they can drop malware onto your computer. It'll take you somewhere that'll scan to see what vulnerabilities are present on your computer. There's all manner of things that can go wrong. We've even had an issue recently here in the office where folks will go into Google just to do a search, and they'll start typing in like Amazon, for example, because they want to go to Amazon.com. Instead of typing Amazon.com in the address bar, they'll just start typing in, they'll type in Amazon and hit Google search. And then they'll click on the first link thinking that, well, that's got to be the genuine Amazon site.
Right.
But these hackers, they also buy banner ad space on these search engines. And so they'll buy, 10,000, 20,000 ad impressions. And in that, they'll inject 100 that are malicious. And so it's too much for Google to police that. And so you'll end up with somebody, 99% of the people will go to the right place, and that one person will get something that'll pop up and say, oh, your computer's infected. You need to click on this. And we've all seen it. So, I mean, but it happens all the time. So it's more of a drive-by type attack. passwords are also important. You guys know how we've changed passwords here. The National Institute for Standards and Technology is who kind of dictates what is best practices today. And they've said that passphrases are so much more secure than the old, alphanumeric passwords that we've all known and loved for so many years.
Right. So like my dog's name and my birthday, probably not a good.
And that's not what your password is.
It's not.
That's purely an example.
That's right.
I don't have a dog.
Academic reasons.
I don't have a dog. But
it's not Rover.
Yeah,
folks.
it's not Rover 421 or whatever.
No.
And then to have that on all of my devices and all of my accounts.
Bad idea.
Okay.
Bad idea to replicate that password to a billion different things.
What do you mean by password versus passphrase?
A passphrase. So like if I say we go to grandma's house every summer, ! And I put spaces in between each one of those words, just like I'm writing a sentence. The algorithms that it would take to break that are so much more complex than if we just had a 15-character just randomized string. And you wouldn't think that.
Right.
But the spaces are what throws the crack software off.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
So it just makes them, it's interesting to see how many years it says that it takes to, another thing that we do employ here is multi-factor, two-factor authentication. I know we all love that. It's
my
such
favorite
a
thing every day.
It's such an annoyance. It really is. I mean, but it's like the deadbolt on your house. I mean, it's an annoyance, but every night I go through and I make sure the deadbolts are all done. We do it for protection. It's not the 40s anymore where everybody knows everybody and everything's safe. So multi-factor, if you've got an online account and you're not using multi-factor authentication, you're somebody's
What do you mean by multi-factor?
So you use either your phone's text message, like your phone number, so that it'll send you usually a 6-digit randomized number that you put in. When you type in your username and password in your account, it'll pop up and say, what's the authentication code, and that'll either come to you as a text, or you can use a like an app, Authy for the multi-factor, and I don't really know how it all syncs up and everything, but they know what that code is. So the bank's been using that type of technology for security for a long time. I don't know how many years they've been using it, but so multi-factor, that's a big one. Matt, you've already talked about think before you click. We've already talked about that. Another one here, and these are just like the top 10 things that I had was PII, personally identifiable information. A lot of us, we put data on our computers and we think we're the only ones that ever have access to it, and it's all going to be safe and good and everything's, wonderful on there. But if you've got social security numbers, bank account numbers, routing numbers, your children's, dates of birth and names and everything else, and something happens to your computer. And I know that would never happen to most people, but let's just say that you did go and type in Amazon in Google and you did accidentally get that one banner ad that was malicious, and you did get some malware on your computer. And let's say somebody dropped, a Trojan on your computer so that they could have backdoor access to your computer. Well, now while you're snoozing away, sleeping at night, and you're not thinking anything about it, they're in there trolling through your computer, finding passwords, finding account numbers. Now you don't have to worry about just your account being broken into, but now your identity being stolen and so on and so forth. And I think we around this table know what a nightmare that is to have to go through that. So there's a lot of things you don't want to do. Well, there are times where you have to get that information out. Like you're buying a house, you got to transfer some documents around. Whatever it is that you're doing, these things come up from time to time. How do you deal with that? Well, you don't email that information. You can email it if you use an encrypted or a secure email to do it. And what that does is it completely encrypts the data so that it's not readable unless they have the decryption key, which is on the other side of the software. The other thing is that data that you put on your computer, take it off of there when you're done. When you're done doing what you need to do with it, sending it out to whoever needs, the mortgage company, whoever it is, get that data off your computer so that it's not just sitting there just latent on your computer. Because it's an accident waiting to happen, and you just don't need it.
Well, so what about the ways that you can save all your passwords on your computer?
yeah, you're going to want to use some sort of a password manager.
Okay.
I'm not a big fan of those. There are a couple of them out there that are kind of high profile, and I don't remember which ones specifically, but that have had they've been breached, and so that's kind of like a worst case scenario when your password manager kind of leaks all your data out there. So
what about Google that says, hey, do you want to save this password? Should we click yes, save it? Or
that is saved locally, and you're okay with that, provided that provided that you've done all the other things that we've said on here, and you have, security software, and you aren't going places you shouldn't go, and you're not clicking on things you shouldn't click on.
Right.
But it's all it takes. You have to be right 100% of the time. They have to be right one time.
Right.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. So, and the FBI, they're not very encouraging in many ways, because they say it's now no longer a matter of if, but when this happens. Right. And so, it feels like we're fighting an uphill battle, but we continue to do what we're supposed to do, and we just have to keep marching forward on it.
I think I'm going to order a flip phone.
I'm gonna get rid of all phones when I retire.
Yes,
I'm just gonna become a hermit and live in a cave somewhere.
Yeah,
so.
Go to the library, check out some books.
Are there still libraries?
I think there are.
I think there are.
And they have more than ebooks.
Let's see. Mobile computing is another one.
Yeah.
Okay. Phones, tablets. I mean, we all remember when you had to actually connect to the internet, right?
Right.
You
all
had
those chirpy noises,
the weird, modem sounds, and modulating.
You don't remember that?
I do. Yeah. I've seen it on TV.
Yeah. So you've heard of it, right? You've seen the movies, right?
You watched that Sandra Bullock movie.
It was Meg Ryan and You've Got Mail.
Oh yeah,
right?
That's right. Yeah.
See, I remember when we were all excited when we got mail,
yeah.
and now we just look at it and go, more mail,
That's right.
But mobile computing is huge, huge, huge. So all of the things that we talked about, they apply there too. So it's amazing how much information is stored on your device. And I think it's a good idea to separate work from personal. For example, in email, I don't have my work email on the same application as my personal email. I just keep them separate. It helps keep things clean. But, we're in an environment where everybody pretty much uses their own personal devices for work email and stuff like that. And so you should make sure that those devices are updated as frequently as possible. You should make sure that those devices are safeguarded. You have a lock code on your device. I actually ran across somebody recently that did not have a lock code on their device, and I thought, what decade are you from?
Right.
This is, because everything, your whole life is on there. I think most people would rather lose their passport than lose their phone anymore.
Oh, completely, because you can just get a new passport.
Exactly. So your devices, your digital devices are huge, huge, huge. So, and then the last thing is, which is kind of a big thing for most of us around the world today, is remote work. Everybody wants to do remote work. We do kind of a hybrid schedule here. Some of us, like you, are 100% remote. And so what it does is it creates a difficult,
they don't trust me. They make me come in. So. But I'm sorry.
My family just would rather I be here.
Yes.
So, but what it does is it makes things difficult for the IT folks to maintain a level of security with our data, because now it's not just a matter of, in the old days, we just secured our network and everything was behind our firewall. We knew where everything was and how it was, and so we just locked it down and said that's not going anywhere. But now everybody wants to work remote, and so you have to make the data available to them so that they can work and yet still keep everything locked down, and yet still make sure that, now with cloud computing, I can access this from a personal computer now, and I can access this from my iPad over here now, and so we're allowing things to access data that we don't know the level of security that it has. Are your devices updated? Are your devices secure with, security software? Are your devices completely eaten up with malware and everything under the sun? Who knows?
Right.
And so, what's coming down the road, and it's been kind of a buzzword that folks have been talking about, is a thing called zero trust. And zero trust says that we, as the IT folks, we set the metrics for what allows you to access data. So we can say, well, only issued devices can access this data here, and it can be locked down to such a degree to say, well, it can only be accessed from this geolocation right here,
Okay.
or we could even go in and say it can only be accessed during these hours.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can really drill down and say, well, Matt, he tends to work crazy hours, so we're going to let his access be until 2 a.m. And but Beth, we know that she's sensible and she stops work
Right.
at a reasonable time. So
Well,
we're
that
going
old zero trust, that was my mom the
Yeah.
whole time I was growing up.
Well,
Absolutely.
So speaking of, I guess, remote work or even just being out or traveling, free Wi-Fi, airport Wi-Fi, coffee shop, is that trustworthy to get on with my device, my phone, my work computer?
It's about as trustworthy as letting a stranger hold your wallet.
Okay.
I mean, it really is. And the thing is, I mean, I could set up a fake wireless network. I could name it something that looks reasonable to you, and I could set it so that it's just flowing through and going out to the internet so that you connect to it. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm on the internet. I've got pretty decent speed here, and but I'm just sitting here, and it's called sniffing. But I'm just sitting here just sniffing all of that data into my system here, and then I'm not looking at what you're looking at. I'm just gathering. I'm
Okay.
I'm harvesting from everybody that's connected to me, and then I'm just dumping it in here.
Yeah, but I'm traveling. Oh, I need to make sure that check was deposited. I'm on the Wi-Fi. I check my bank account, and then now the sniffer has my bank account.
I do mobile banking too, but I do it over my cellular network.
Okay.
I trust my
As do
carrier.
I, because you've told me to do that.
I trust my carrier far more than I trust any
Okay.
kind of Wi-Fi network. And in fact, I can't even think of the last time I connected to a free
Wi-Fi.
Well, maybe Culver's, but
Yeah.
they're trustworthy.
Oh, sure.
No, I'm
for sure.
really don't trust anybody. Be suspicious.
Okay.
I said.
Yeah.
Which is hard. It's hard, I think, for us as believers, too, when we want to assume the best and
Right.
think the best of people.
That's why we're easy targets.
Exactly. Exactly.
Well, that's your list.
That's just the top 10. I mean, those are just
the top 10.
Yeah.
So, Doug, what are some of the biggest scams that you're seeing going on that people might need to be aware of?
Well, I'll tell you, the one that concerned me the most, it was really more of a research study that was done utilizing this large language model AI like ChatGPT. And that's just kind of a generic ChatGPT is just kind of generically thrown around to everything now. But what these researchers did was they took, I talked about how the reason you update computers is because there are vulnerabilities and there's zero-day exploits or there are exploits that have been out for a while. Well, anyway, what they did was there's actually a site that lists and houses all of, they call them CVEs. They're vulnerability exploits out there, but they list all of them. If they exist, they're on this list. And so what they did was they fed this list into a series of servers, AI servers. And they said, our goal is to break into a list of websites that were their own websites. This was all like it was a research project. And so what they found was they had better than 80% success rate in letting the AI bots break into the web servers. Now, here's what they did. Let's say that they had a total of 5 computers. I don't know how many they had, but for the sake of the discussion, we'll say 5. So they designated one as the manager, and they designated the other 4 as the doers, the mindless bots. And this AI-driven manager bot dictated to each individual other bot what its responsibilities were and said, go out and do this, try this. And I mean, and it was, they found that this was so much more effective and fast in breaking into these websites. So then they said, well, you know what? That was really cool. So let's go ahead and see if it can discover vulnerabilities, ones that we didn't even know about yet. And they harvested just a litany of unknown vulnerabilities and were also able to infiltrate the websites with that. And so when I heard that, I thought, man, that's uh, I don't have an answer for how you deal with that. I mean, because this is faster than we can discover things. And so unfortunately, it's here and it's not going to go anywhere. And so what this tells me is that now more than ever, you need to make sure your stuff stays updated. You need to make sure that, you're doing all of these things that we talked about, because it is way more critical now than it ever was before. So
what about, I think of senior adults that are often easy targets. Are there, I mean, you've given us this list already, but anything that you would say to just protect them from hackers or people that are coming after them?
Yeah, really, I'm going to direct the answer to the children of those seniors, because the seniors, a lot of times, you got to remember, they grew up in a different era. They didn't grow up with all of this stuff. And so we talk about being suspicious, and I think many of them by nature they have grown up in this country. They've seen, World War II. They've seen the good in people. And so it's hard for them to not trust.
Right.
And so when somebody calls them up and says, hey, I want to sell you such and such, they take them at their word. And so I think the onus is really on us as the children to say, you know what, we need to do some education with them. First of all, Microsoft will never call you.
Right.
Most legitimate tech companies will not call you. They don't post their phone numbers. So if one of them says, I got a call from Microsoft, you can just tell them right off the bat, no, you did not. It's not a legitimate call. If you suspect that they have given a credit card to someone, call the bank immediately, go with them, get that account locked, because if you do it soon enough, then they can get that money. Chances are they can get their money back. If they said they gave remote access to somebody, then just shut the computer down. I mean, all the way down, unplug it, disconnect it from everything, and get it repaired. And chances are you may have to completely wipe it and reload everything, because, this type of stuff is it's prevalent. It is going on all the time. I see it all the time. And so they are easy targets. And again, this is a business. These people are ruthless when it comes to this. So.
And the other thing that I've been hearing a lot about for a couple of years now is this idea of ransomware. How does that work?
So ransomware, it gets what they call dropped on your machine. And so basically what it does is it goes through and it just encrypts all of your files, and then you have to have a decryption key to get it off. In the early days when ransomware came out, it was almost like there was honor among thieves, in that, you would pay for the ransomware decryption key with Bitcoin, and they would give it to you. And it was like, thank you for your business. And the decryption key worked. And so, many companies were finding themselves over a barrel. They paid, the however much it was, and then they got their decryption key. But the criminals, as is their nature, have gotten worse, and so now they're doing a reinfection. So you get your decryption key, you get your files back, and if you're silly enough to just leave everything just as it was and not fix the problem that you had, then you will find in a few months later that they will be back and that they want more money. And here's the real kicker, is that they've already been in your system, chances are, for up to 6 months before you even know about it.
Wow.
And so they've already done all the reconnaissance that they need. They know how much money you have, how much money you can afford to lose, and so on and so forth. And, they'll sit there and they'll hold you hostage, and So it's a big deal. It's a big deal. I mean, it is probably one of I think the deep fakes is probably the biggest like news item today, but ransomware is, I would say, definitely number 2.
And they could do this to churches.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that list of 10 things that you told us.
Highly critical.
Yeah.
Your XDR software and your EDR software, they were designed for to battle ransomware. I mean, at their core, that's what they do. And so, like the particular brand of XDR that we use CrowdStrike. What it does is it has created a global net. So, like I said, the example of a security guard for your house versus a SWAT team for your neighborhood. Well, what CrowdStrike does is they have an entire mesh network of all of their endpoints all over the world. So if you are one of their customers, you are part of that mesh. And so if somebody over in, I don't know, somewhere in Italy, for example, gets a 0-day vulnerability exploited on their computer, this then pulls all of those analytics, throws it up into the cloud, and then pushes it out to everybody else instantaneously. So that one person might suffer a little bit, but it then covers everybody else. Because back in the old days, when we had things like Code Red that hit, that was the big news story, was how fast it just transmitted over the globe. And, and it was, 100,000 computers a day were hit with this. Well, now, I mean, 100,000 computers would be the blink of an eye.
Right.
I mean, ransomware is just ruthless in the way that it travels. So this is why EDR and XDR software is so absolutely critical.
So, Doug, can you tell us anything about this resource that you've mentioned or website that's going to be available to churches?
Sure. We haven't settled on a name for it yet. We're internally, IT people are super great about naming things and them being interesting, meaningful names, but we're calling it a best practices site.
Okay.
It'll be something better than that, I'm sure. But basically what we're trying to do is cobble together as many resources as we can to give meaningful information to our churches out there on a variety of different things. So, of course, my area is information technology. We'll have areas from human resources, accounting. I'm sure there'll be some other areas that are going to be involved in that too. So, we're in the process of putting together something that we can present, and then the committees are going to look at it and see what they think, and
that's going to be great. Because I mean, if we can't trust anyone, when I Google what I might need, I don't know if it's a good resource or not. So this will be so helpful for our churches to know.
And this is all stuff that again we've just kind of cobbled together from resources that we've come to know and trust. We're also going to put together, at least in the IT side, we're going to put together some vendor lists for a variety of things. So if you're looking for assistance with audio, video stuff, there'll be a section for that. If you're looking for some technology help, I mean, even down to the point of where, we think we've been breached. Our computers have been breached. We'll have resources in there for some folks that I know personally that I know do this kind of stuff and do it well. So.
Which is great. I mean, think about it, Matt. So many of our churches are small church, one staff, the pastor. They don't have an IT staff. They might not have anybody that they know that can help.
And most pastors are not IT experts.
No.
Yes.
Most people aren't IT experts.
Most people aren't. Well, Doug, thank you so much. I think I speak for Beth. You've made us all very suspicious.
Yes.
Well, my job is to scare you.
Good deal.
If not to scare you, at least depress you.
Yes, both. You've accomplished both today.
As all of your tutorials tell us.
Don't click. Think before you click is what we do.
Think before you click. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.